Too short to ride. This episode wasn't exactly what I envisioned it to be before I saw it, but it was definitely something special. And the fact that I wasn't able to predict everything that happened in this episode definitely made me happy. I don't want this show to become predictable. This is actually the second time that I shot this review. I kept going off on tangents in my original review of the episode, and by the time I got around to editing it, I wanted it to be a lot more concise than I'd originally made it. And there was just no way to do that seamlessly without recording it again. Anyone who follows me over on Tumblr knows a couple of things about me. One, that I expected this episode to be about a fusion. That I expected that the entire episode would be about the fact that Steven, Amethyst, and Peridot couldn't ride that roller coaster, and that Peridot, being uncomfortable with shapeshifting, would be the only character unwilling to do so to ride, and that she would end up fusing with Amethyst, since she had shown interest in fusing in the past. In the end, though, the roller coaster featured in the promos for this episode that the characters were too short to ride on actually featured very little in the overall plot of the episode. The main use of the Funland setting in this episode was a ring toss game, which I thought was really interesting. But before they even go to Funland, we get this scene between Peridot and Steven, where Steven gives Peridot a tablet that his dad originally bought, and she gets all excited because it's a lot like her old hand computers used to be, and she even goes so far as to go into Steven's closet and rip the Velcro out of some of his old shoes to affix it to her arm. Amethyst shows up, and that's when they go to Funland. It looks like she had planned to go with Steven, but seeing Peridot there, she just kind of assumes that Peridot is going to go with them, so they all go together, and that's when we get the roller coaster scene from the promo. After Amethyst and Steven ride the roller coaster themselves, since they are both able to grow taller, the group moves on to this ring toss game. And Peridot wants the big prize from the ring toss. It's this big, green, like stereotypical Martian alien doll thing, and it's adorable. And she wants it probably because it reminds her of herself. I mean, Peridot's design is very clearly meant to be reminiscent of the little green man type alien. And Amethyst tries to win it for her using shapeshifting to get one of the rings onto one of the little bottles, but that's not enough. You need to get all 10, and so Peridot has to settle with this little tiny finger alien, and she's clearly bummed out, and so they're kind of chilling together, and the whole rest of the episode is actually about what happens next. Amethyst asks Peridot why she wouldn't shapeshift herself, and Peridot tries to brush it off with more of her jingoistic attitude towards Homeworld that we know is bullcrap at this point. She says something about shapeshifting being an insult to your intended form, but Amethyst sees right through this, asks her what's really the problem. We find out she can't shapeshift. So we go through a sequence of very short scenes where they're trying to get her to shapeshift. First, they try to get her to grow parts of her body. Then they try to get her to shapeshift into an animal, complete with the return of the cat fingers, which was terrible. Then they try to get her to shapeshift part of her body again, and it still doesn't work. So they start literally trying to stretch her out, and of course that doesn't work either. And finally Peridot gets all bummed out again and reveals that because of the dwindling resources on Homeworld, modern gems that are made there don't have powers, that something about the lack of resources that went into their production prevents them from developing gem powers, and that's why she, a second-generation Peridot, Era 2 Peridot as she puts in the dialogue of the episode, was given her technological enhancements to augment her so that she wouldn't have to rely on gem abilities that she doesn't have, which is ridiculous. Obviously, Homeworld was lying to her. Now, it could still go either way. There could be something that we don't know, but as we understand things at this point, that just isn't true. And I will talk about what I think this means later. I just want all of you to keep that in mind, that Peridot was clearly being lied to by her people. And Amethyst is having none of this. She knows exactly what it feels like to not be what she was intended to be, to not be everything that she could be right out the gate, to have to make her own way in the world. So she gives Peridot the lowdown. She flat out says, Peridot, you need to stop thinking about what it is that you could have been and learn to appreciate what you are, because that's what we like you for. We like you. But Peridot doesn't listen to her. She's using the tablet as a crutch and ignoring what Amethyst has to say. So Amethyst grabs the tablet from her and tries to throw it into the ocean. And Peridot, in a desperate attempt to save it, uses one of her gem powers. She has the ability to control metal. I'm assuming through a form of magnetism, making her basically the Steven Universe equivalent of Magneto. And Amethyst has been getting a lot of hate for this. But I'm going to defend her here and say that she made exactly the right decision. Could she have handled it a little more delicately? Of course. But Amethyst recognized that Peridot was using that tablet to prevent herself from having to deal with reality and move forward, and so she removed the tablet from the equation. And she did it with Peridot's best interests in mind. You can feel how much she cares about Peridot in this moment. How much she wants to see Peridot come to love herself for who she is. And now imbued with this new ability, Peridot is able to use it to land 10 rings in the ring toss and get the alien toy that she wanted. And Aside from all of the homeworld lore and potential homeworld lore and implied homeworld lore that we learned in this episode, it was actually a really good episode just on its own merits. We got some really great interactions between Steven and Peridot, and especially Peridot and Amethyst. That other thing that you'll know about me if you follow me on Tumblr, the one that I never actually got around to mentioning yet, is that I do think the writers are going in the direction of a romantic relationship between Peridot and Amethyst. Call me a shipper if you want, I guess technically I am, but that's just the direction I see it going. And there was a lot in this episode that confirmed that. Peridot was so excited to see Amethyst when she first arrived. Amethyst was so eager to take Peridot with them to Funland. Amethyst's sudden dedication to win Peridot the toy that she wanted before she realized that she had to get 10 rings instead of 1. Amethyst is constantly looking for opportunities to touch on Peridot, giving her noogies and stuff. The fact that Amethyst got very real with Peridot towards the end, and was even the one to understand how to break Peridot out of her funk and get her moving forward. Not only does it all suggest that these two know each other very well, even better than it would seem based on how much they've been on screen together, that they have been spending a lot of time together off screen, it's also very significant that the scenes of Peridot being reassured here, which would usually have gone to Steven, instead go to Amethyst. That's the kind of thing you do when you're trying to write two characters as romantic interests. And even though Amethyst still has a little ways to go, even though she could have been more subtle in this episode, their compatibility in this episode can't be ignored. I think whether you ship them or not, that's just something you can't deny at this point, that there is a compatibility to these characters. And yes, guys, that was actually a more concise review than the one I originally filmed. No, it doesn't seem possible, but I promise you it is. All of that said, guys, if you have seen this episode, what did you think of it? Let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.